Welcome again, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Nubian Journeys. I'm so happy you could be here. Thank you once again to Lion Pride Music Family for allowing us to use their beat for our intro. Today we are zooming in to another Caribbean island. Can you take a guess where we're heading to today? Hopefully, you guessed Barbados. Barbados is a republic. Their motto is pride and integrity. And if you're looking at the screen, Barbados can be found to the right of your screen near the bottom. So it's a former British colony, and Barbados is an island that is about 166 square miles, so not that big. It's a little bit north of Venezuela for those trying to figure out on the map where it is. And the um, the capital is Bridgetown. And so we will dive in and see what else we can learn about Barbados today. So if you're looking on the screen, you will see the map of Barbados. There's a few things there that you can visit, a few places you can visit when you go there. Just so you know, the population of Bridgetown, which is the capital near the bottom of your screen to the left, the population is about 285,000 to 300,000. And if you're visiting, Bridgetown is where you will see the most people because it is highly populated in the capital. If you like beautiful temperatures and beautiful beaches, then Barbados is the place for you. It is on average 24 to 28 degrees Celsius. What else can you ask for? And the dry season is from December to May, and the wet season is from June to December. So depending on what you like, you can go at the time you want to. And if you're worried about hurricanes, they're very infrequent in Barbados. It has happened, but they're not as frequent as other Caribbean islands. So, quick history about Barbados. The Arawak and Carib people are thought to have lived there between 500 to 1500 CE, and they call the island Ichiroganem. Ichiroganem. I probably said that right. Someone's going to correct me, and that's okay. And so we think the first contact with Europeans may have occurred in the early 16th century when the Spaniards visited. The Portuguese are the ones who are thought to have named Barbados Barbados, which means bearded ones, which either was named for the bearded fig trees or the bearded men on the island. In 1625, there was an English expedition to Barbados, and they brought with them some Englishmen and about 10 Africans. Thereafter, of course, we know this is the time of sugar plantations. So in Barbados, there were also sugar plantations. And usually, as you can tell from my other videos, we know that enslaved peoples were brought from West Africa to work on those plantations for free. And from 1636 onward, there were enslaved peoples in Barbados. So, just for statistics' sake, by 1684, there were about 20,000 whites in Barbados, but 46,000 blacks. And in 1834, so 200, little bit less than 200 years later, when slavery was abolished, there were about 15,000 whites to 88,000 blacks. So that should tell you how much those numbers increased between those years. And I'm not going to say too much about this slide. I'll let you read it. But basically, the economy of Barbados was based on enslavement, and those who owned plantations had money and wealth, and those who didn't. So Barbados became independent on November 30th, 1966. So they were a member of the Commonwealth. And if you know anything about CARICOM, which was started in 1973, the Barbados Prime Minister in 1968, he helped to form the what we now know as CARICOM. And at the bottom of the screen, you will see that in 2021, Barbados became a republic, replacing Queen Elizabeth at the time, who was the head of the monarchy, as its head of state with the country's newly elected president. So there are some things that we are going to learn next because I wanted to know what's the difference, because of course I live in a country which is still under the monarchy, and I wanted to know, what does this mean? So what changed? Symbolically, there is independence. They removed the last symbols of the monarchy, such as swearing allegiance to the British monarch. Renaming the titles is number 2. So instead of saying royal or crown in any of their legal documents, it would be changed to national or Barbadian. Ceremonially, there were changes also. Whenever there's a queen or a king, um, they're represented in their colonies by a governor general. That role was abolished, and the royal standard flag was lowered and replaced by the president's standard. So while there's a president there, the prime minister still is the head of government, and the legal system and parliamentary structure remains largely the same. And I had one other question because I wanted to know what other countries in the Caribbean are republics. Does anybody know the answer? I'll give you 2 seconds. Bing, 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 bing. There are about 8 republics in the Caribbean, and I'll give you a list. So Barbados, of course, Cuba, Dominica, Dominican Republic, Guyana, Haiti, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago. The economy of Barbados. It is one of the wealthiest and most developed countries in the Eastern Caribbean and enjoys one of the highest per capita incomes in the region. So, if you're thinking about, what does that mean for people living, so for example, in Canada, 68 cents Canadian would give you 1 Barbadian dollar. So the Canadian dollar is a little higher in value than Barbadian dollar, but not that much, a little bit. If you're thinking of moving there, it does have a higher cost of living in Barbados. So your utilities, etc. might be on par. Where does a lot of the monies come from in Barbados? Their economy is based on tourism and the offshore sector. And I'll let you read the rest there. So the main industries, as I just said, tourism, offshore finance and information services, manufacturing, agriculture, and they do make sugar, rum, and molasses. And if anybody knows, does the Bajan rum taste anything like the Jamaican rum? Let me know in the chat. And who do they export things to? Their main export partners, the US, of course, Trinidad and Tobago, UK, and other Caribbean nations. They have a really good quality healthcare system with universal coverage. So if you're looking at that, healthcare is pretty good in Barbados, and the life expectancy is around 79 years old, which is pretty great for a Caribbean island. Natural resources there, limestone, petroleum, fish, and some natural gas. And just quickly, ethnic groups and languages. You can see, of course, ethnically that most Bajans are of African descent or black. And then you also have a small number of white, East Indian, mixed race, and other not stated also. If your main concern is education, you will be happy to know that the government of Barbados pays for education from kindergarten all the way up to the end of um, high school. So they actually cover primary, secondary, and tertiary education, um, even your textbooks. Wow, tertiary too. Okay, now I have to look into that more. And so, because of this emphasis on education, Barbados has one of the highest literacy rates in the world at 98%. That is awesome. Way to go, Barbados. If I had my horn, I'd do my horn sound, but I don't have one. Here's some fun facts really quickly. As I said before, the Portuguese named Barbados Los Barbados, the bearded ones, in 1536, which is a reference to the long hanging aerial roots of the island's indigenous bearded fig trees. And you can see there, I did a little currency conversion there and the time zone. One other interesting thing to know about Barbados, despite the fact that it has tropical rain, it is considered a water scarce country. So that's one thing to think about. Now I'll have to do some more investigation into that because I would not have thought of that in the Caribbean. But there's a lot of natural things in Barbados. They have tropical trees, they have birds, they have monkeys and mongoose and hummingbirds, sparrows. So if you like that kind of thing, Barbados is a place for you. And here you can see the flag and coat of arms. So if you see any of these two symbols anywhere, you will know that this is from Barbados. So the coat of arms and the flag, I think, were both accepted in 1966 when Barbados became independent. And let's see if I can remember what these represent. So on the coat of arms, there's a helmet with the national symbol on top. There's a shield beneath with two that is supported by two animals. Oh, and my sheet went away, so we'll go back to that after. Here's some great things for you to do in Barbados. If you like culture, there is a lot there for you. They have a vibrant nightlife. If you like visiting the beaches, they have beaches. There are caves you can explore. You can also go to historical sites. If you like diving and snorkeling, you can swim with the turtles, go to some shipwrecks, and visit the coral reefs. And if you like learning the history of rum, they also have that available for you to visit the distilleries. And I think I mentioned before, but it's worth mentioning again, that the official language of Barbados is English. However, there is a Bajan dialect or Barbadian Creole. And if you're wondering, why don't I understand? Just say, hey, can you please slow down a little? And maybe they can explain it. But when you go to these countries, different places where they have a different dialect, just immerse yourself and listen carefully, and you'll eventually start understanding some of it. And this slide is just to show you some of the wonderful food that they have in Barbados. When you see things like flying fish, mutton, prawns, pepper pot. I know somebody is going to say yuck, chicken feet, but you should try it before you say that. I mean, chicken feet soup is awesome, so I guess pickled chicken feet could work too. All right. And here are some famous Bajans. I'm hoping that you know who these are. On the left, you can see Prime Minister Mia Mottley. You can see in the middle, Miss Rihanna. And then on the side, you can see, hold on, let me just make sure I'm calling his name correctly. Sir Garfield Sobers, I think, is on the right, but I could be wrong about that. I had way more people here, and then I removed some of them, so I could be wrong. Somebody please correct me, but I do know for sure there's Mia Motley on the left and Rihanna in the middle. All right, so I hope you learned something about Barbados. And if you do end up going there, please let me know in the chat beneath this video. And now, once again, when you see this map of the Caribbean, you should be able to look and you should be able to find Barbados to the right, near the bottom, above Trinidad and Tobago. Can you see it now? Perfect. Have a wonderful day, everyone.